Squid Game has come to an end, so it's time to rank all 12 games played in the show. What's going on, guys? I'm Chris, and welcome back to another video. So today I'm ranking all of the games played in Squid Game. I'm specifically talking about the 6 games from Season 1 and the 6 games from Season 2 and 3 that are played on the island. So no games like Rock, Paper, Scissors -1 or Russian Roulette that are played off the island, just the games we see in the games themselves, if that makes sense. It goes without saying, there's a big fat spoiler warning for every single season, and pretty much every major death of the show will probably come up in this video. So if you haven't seen Squid Game and you don't want to be spoiled, go watch the show, then come back and watch this. But again, if you don't care about getting spoiled, welcome in. Before I get into this, hit that like button, comment down below your ranking of the 12 games played in Squid Game, and of course, subscribe and hit that notification bell to help reach my goal of 150,000 subscribers here on the channel. I mean, quite a bit. So up front, I'll say, I don't think there's an outright bad game in Squid Game. I think each one serves its purpose. Some are more interesting than others, and I'm ranking them by factoring in the game that's played, the emotional stakes, the character loss. All these different things are kind of going into the ranking, as well as just my personal preference. So without further ado, let's dive in. In last place, I've got a game from Season 1. That game is Tug of War. This is a very basic game that everyone probably played at some point, here in the US at least, growing up, having like field days or in PE class or gym class. You probably played Tug of War at some point. It's a very simple concept. 2 teams are on one side of a rope, and whichever team pulls the other side, over a certain point, the midpoint, they win, and the other team's eliminated. And I want to say, this is not a bad game. To me, it's just the least interesting. It's around the midway point of the season, and Oh Nam, or player 1, the old man, if you will, he sort of introduces this strategy for Ji-hun, Songwoo, and the others to win, but that's really it. That's all you get out of this game. There's not tons of major character deaths. There are some intense moments, definitely, and some strategy that comes into play. For example, letting go of the rope, taking some steps forward to get the other team to trip and fall off balance. Like, there are some cool moments in this game, but it's one of, if not the least memorable of them all, just because, again, it's very basic. Nothing wrong with that. It just doesn't really hold a candle to the other games played throughout the seasons, in my personal opinion. But above that, at number 11, I've got Dalgona, or the Sugar Honeycomb game, if you will. This is iconic. In fact, you could argue, if we're ranking these based off how iconic they are, it's top 3. It's one of the most memorable things from Squid Game Season 1, but as a game, I have it a little lower, just because, again, very bare bones and simple. Nothing wrong with that. A lot of the characters get out of this one. Some characters use a lighter to heat up a needle, but the objective of the game is to scratch this shape out of like this little sugar cookie, and Ji-hun figures out that he can lick it and ultimately loosen the particles of sugar to get the shape out. He picks the umbrella shape, which is really tough luck, but obviously the triangle is the easiest one. Then you've got circle, star, and the umbrella, which is just a brutal draw, honestly. But every character successfully manages at getting the shape cut out of the cookie here, so there's not like any major deaths. The cookies became an iconic part of the Squid Game, I guess, buzz, we could call it, when Season 1 dropped back in 2021. But really and truly, the game's not terribly intense. It just kind of serves its purpose, and then we move on to the next one. So this one isn't as high up as it probably is for a lot of others. It's iconic, I respect it, but there are better games. Next, I've got Red Light, Green Light, but specifically the one from Season 2, because the other one we'll talk about later in this video. The reason I have this a little lower is because it's a repeat of a game we've already seen. It's the only game that repeats between all 12. So in the first season, there's only one game that comes back into play in second season, and that, of course, is Red Light, Green Light. This time around, Ji-hun knows the ins and outs of it, and it's an identical game. Nothing's really changed from the rules, and so it plays out similarly, but in a less intense manner, because Ji-hun can kind of warn everyone, hey, don't move. The big doll, the statue you guys see up there, like, its eyes are motion sensors, and you will get killed. So there is carnage eventually, and the character Thanos is on drugs here, so he starts to push some people over. There's chaos for sure. In the final moments of this game, when Ji-hun actually runs back out to save a character, that shows how good of a person he is. But what's ultimately devastating is that person they save, who was already injured, ends up getting shot once they cross the finish line anyway, which is just brutal. But Red Light, Green Light, we'll talk about more later, obviously. It's maybe the most iconic game of the entire show. I just think they handle it better in Season 1. More on that later. Now, for this next one, it could be a hot take. I don't know what people's rankings of these games are. I haven't seen anyone's rankings personally, but I've got Sky Squid Game, which is actually the final game in all of Squid Game. It's the the last one in Season 3. Of course, with it being the last game, that makes for some huge moments and character deaths. I mean, spoiler alert, I've said that already, but Ji-hun, the main character of player 456, dies in this game. He ultimately makes a sacrifice play to save the baby of player 222. It's sort of a way to stick it to the man, but also show that, hey, humans can be good deep down. I know that the front man might have lost hope in humanity, but Ji-hun is like, let me prove you wrong, man. So there are some heavy-hitting emotional moments here. Player 333 has gone off the deep end, fully lost his mind, and is threatening to kill his own child, Madness, but the game doesn't have the most interesting characters. What I mean by that is, most of the new additions are killed off by the time this final game rolls around, and that's kind of a minor gripe I have with the season. But I also get it at the same time, right? Like, could you imagine if the mother and son, player 222 and player 120, were all around for this final game? It would just rip our hearts out every time one of them had to die, because there are 3 platforms, a square, circle, and triangle, and each time one player has to be pushed off of that platform within the 15-minute time span set per platform, meaning 3 characters in total at least have to bite the dust. So if all of our favorites were around for this point, that means we'd be witnessing our favorite characters kill each other off and make some horrible decisions that would just, again, hurt our souls deep down. So maybe it was for the best. Also, killing some of the best characters early in the season shows the stakes throughout the entire season, not just saving them for the end. So I get it, but it is a little frustrating at the same time. Regardless, talking about this game in particular, you're on a platform, you got 15 minutes, one person has to bite the dust. Boom, next platform, same thing with the next one. It gets interesting near the end when there are 3 players left in player 333, player 222's baby, and Ji-hun, and then player 333 loses it and starts to fight Ji-hun while the baby's laying elsewhere, but they forgot to hit the start button for the round, which results in player 333's death basically not counting, leading obviously to Ji-hun's sacrifice. So the game's good. I think it has its moments. It's not an elite game in my opinion. There are obviously much better ones in this show, but it serves its purpose, ultimately kind of being the catalyst for Ji-hun's sacrifice to end his character arc. Next up, I've got Jump Rope. This is from Season 3, and let me just tell you, this was stressful. Maybe one of the most stressful games in the show. My heart was racing, my palms were sweating. I hate heights, so just imagining having to cross this bridge, and not just crossing the bridge, but having to jump up and down every time the rope swings around. It got my heart rate going, all right? At the same time, Ji-hun has the baby in this game, and he successfully carries that baby across, but all the while, player 222's ankle is like destroyed, absolutely fractured, so she's out of commission, and ultimately she does end up taking her own life when she realizes she can't proceed any further. But this game really exposes how much of a coward player 333 is. He's lost his mind a long time ago and just is trying to save face at the end, really. But the game wasn't as edge of your seat as it could have been, because to the point I made with Squid Game, the best characters that were introduced in Season 2 are all dead by this point, so you know Ji-hun's gonna make it to the finals because it has to for story purposes, and then you just got a bunch of other randos messing around that you don't really care about, so that's why there isn't as much of that investment level as there are with some of the games that are ahead of this. However, by concept alone, this game has to be pretty high because it takes ideas from other games, strengthens them, and it is really original. It brings back, you know, the doll figure from the red light, green light games, but you've got a boy and a girl and they're swinging the jump rope, so it's got that eerie, creepy feel to it, and of course, no one likes heights, right? Next up, I've got Squid Game, the final game from Season 1 that makes for a perfect callback to the opening shot of the show as a whole, as the opening scene of Squid Game is a flashback of kids playing Squid Game and the rules are explained to us, so that by the time the final game rolls around in Season 1, we already understand the rules because they've been explained to us. But this game obviously has 2 players left. It's Ji-hun and Song-woo, childhood friends who grew up playing Squid Game together, so it makes for a beautiful parallel to that opening shot. I love a good bookend, and that's what this final game delivers. Also, when the rain starts to fall, ooh, chills. I think this game functions really well in the show narratively because, like I said, it's a callback that just really works so well, and on top of that, the 2 characters have a history all the way back to childhood, so they're fighting to the death essentially, and Song-woo ultimately ends up offing himself when Ji-hun is like trying to put an end to the games and do this vote mid-game. It's devastating, obviously, but it's so well shot. So like I said, it's a great bookend and I'm a sucker for it. Next up, I've got Marbles. This is from Season 1, Episode 6, and it's perhaps the simplest game of them all. This is where characters had to pair up and each player sort of just picked how they wanted to play. Like, there are a variety of ways that characters could have gone about playing marbles, and so we see that. But it's because of the episode this game is played in that I have it relatively high. this episode, I believe, is the best of the entire 3-season run. It's filled with rich character moments. We see Song-woo's deception of Ali. It's downright devastating, I'll say it. Soul-crushing. On first viewing as well, when you see Ji-hun and Il-nam pair up, you just feel so bad. Apologies for mispronouncing some of these names, probably. I try my best. But Se-byuk and Ji-young also have this moment where they basically get to know each other for like 30 minutes or however long the timer is, and they say, hey, let's just bet on one marble. Whoever can throw it closer to the wall wins. And Ji-young the whole time knew she was going to sacrifice herself for Se-byuk to live, and that just rips your heart out. I just believe this is the most emotional episode of the entire show. It's so well done. The characters pairing up with someone they think is going to help them win, but ultimately they have to face off against them. It's devastating, and it really tackles this idea of the corruption within humanity and how when you're put in a corner, you'll do whatever it takes to survive, as we see Song-woo deceive Ali. Devastating stuff. Next up, we've got Mingle from season 2. This is when each character had to gather a group of people equal to the number that's called out and lock themselves in a room before time is up. And this is another one of those riveting games that leaves you worried about the fate of every single character, because sometimes an odd number would be called out, sometimes an even number would be called out, and usually you've got a character grouping of like 5 or 6, and so each time you're kind of flip-flopping between which character's gonna run out and try and find some other characters, who's gonna get screwed over, left out of the room, have to find another group. It was intense as hell. No one felt safe the entire time, and each time those doors closed, a new scenario would arise. Sometimes a character would get left behind. One time, player 1 makes a kill on someone who's already in the room, and he's like killing him in a headlock as the time is running out. So this game from season 2, definitely high up on the list. I know a lot of people might even have this near number 1 or 2, but to me, it's one of the best and most pulse-pounding adrenaline rush games there is. The next one's from season 2 as well. We've got the 6-legged pentathlon, which is arguably the most challenging game. It requires all 5 players to be in sync while simultaneously competing in their own individual minigames. And by the time our main characters get to go at the very end, player 1, the front man, ends up screwing them around until the very end, which just makes for some moments of, oh my gosh, what is going on? Are they actually going to kill these people? He made things a lot tighter than they needed to be. They cut it close. Like, there were some moments that were just nerve-wracking as hell. On top of that, this game actually spans multiple episodes. It's one of those where Squid Game hits us with a signature cliffhanger during the middle of a game. They love to do that. But it's a great way to get you to click the next episode immediately. But this is the game where player 120 stands on business and just becomes a fan favorite. I'm a sucker for these longer games in Squid Game that span multiple episodes, and that's what this is. Also, it requires the most skill and teamwork combined, making it a top-tier game in Squid Game. Just great stuff all around. Next up, we've got the glass stepping stones from season 1. This has, of course, become iconic, and it plays directly into my personal fear of heights. There are only 16 players left at this point, and they're trying to get across these glass stepping stones that make up a bridge. There are 2 pieces of glass next to each other. One is tempered, one is normal, so if they step on one, it's going to break. If they step on the other, they're going to be able to stand there. So throughout this game, we see characters pushing other characters into the glass to test if the glass breaks or not, but also actively killing other characters. At a certain point near the end of the game, there's one player who actually is able to tell the difference based on the reflection from the lights above. So what happens is the frontman turns the lights off, and we get these final few moments in the darkness. Song-woo's sanity continues to slip as he ends up pushing this guy forward to reveal the broken glass in front of them. And of course, at the very end, once 3 players remain, and Song-woo, Se-byuk, and Ji-hun, the glass explodes, and there's this like slow-mo shot of the glass flying at them. It's one of the coolest shots of the season. To me, when I think of the different games, this is one that comes to mind. It's definitely on the Mount Rushmore for me of Squid Game games. My runner-up is actually from season 3, and that's going to be Hide and Seek. This features the loss of various main characters in absolutely heartbreaking fashion. The game pits 2 teams against each other, the red team and the blue team. Those wearing red vests have to kill a character wearing a blue vest in 30 minutes, or else they themselves get eliminated from the games, while the characters in the blue vests have to successfully hide and live throughout the entire 30 minutes, and then they go on to the next game. So much goes down in this episode. This is a game that spans the entirety of an episode, that episode being season 3, episode 2, a top episode of the show for me. It's right up there alongside season 1, episode 6, in terms of emotionally moving character moments and just being brutal as hell. In this episode, we see player 333 go on a killing spree, player 222 gives birth, player 149 has to kill her own son to stop him from killing player 222 after she gives birth, and we lose player 120, one of the best new characters in the show, in a senseless act of violence as a direct result of player 333, aka MG Coin's rage. This game pits characters against each other who have of close ties, whether that be a familial connection or just friendship. It's a brilliant move from a writing standpoint, but man, is it so f***ed up. But Red Light, Green Light from Season 1 takes the top spot for me. It is the first game that set the tone for the entire show and every single game that would follow. Like, the first time I watched Squid Game, I was not really familiar with what the show was. I hadn't heard much about it except that it was popular on Netflix, so I watched it that month it came out. And so watching Red Light, Green Light go down, it really was a holy shit moment. Like, the first time I experienced watching this game, I was just like, damn, this show's about to be madness. Over time, it's of course become, I believe, the most iconic game of the entire show. On top of that, it might just be the most memorable as well, which is why I believe it's the best of the bunch. I mean, half the damn players nearly get eliminated here. You've got the moment where Ali saves Ji-hun, is just grabbing him when they're standing still. So there are moments where you'll be biting your nails, jumping out of your seat. It does a great job of introducing every single character while also showing how high the stakes are here, and these games really are life or death. Like, yes, you're playing for money, but it's not going to be a cakewalk. And it also tonally shows how dark this show is going to be. Human life is just treated like sports gambling by these people running the show, and it's sick. It's so gross. But this game is able to set the tone across the board in a wonderful fashion, and to me, again, it is the most memorable, iconic game of all 12. But that's just my ranking of the Squid Game games from all 3 seasons. Let me know yours in the comments down below, and of course, hit that like button, subscribe to that notification bell, and be on the lookout for more videos coming very soon. But until next time, I'll see you guys later.